Getting tests after tests done or getting a diagnosis is simply not enough to help you get better. My name is Anindita and I help women struggling with autoimmune conditions reverse their symptoms and find freedom from their disease condition using their body as their guide. And in today's session, I'm going to share with you some thoughts about how chronic diseases develop, why they don't go away on their own, and why simply getting tests after tests done and a lot of data is important, but it is not merely enough to help you get better. Right? So the first thing that I want to share with you is a story about a client of mine. She came to me with a diagnosed autoimmune disease condition, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's. Both of these are autoimmune conditions. The first one is of the joints, the second one is of the thyroid, and she had a host of other issues, fatigue, etc. And she's somebody I know personally, so I could give her a lot of inputs. This was a few years ago, and then of course, but when she started the journey with me, I shared with her what actually was going on underneath, intestinal permeability. So we decided to work on dietary changes, lifestyle changes, removing toxins, getting onto a cleaner diet, removing foods like gluten, soy, corn, etc. Those that were inducing food sensitivities, things that were aggravating her immune response. And when she started doing that, she started seeing the difference, right? So and she had this diagnosis for a while, but she was not getting the answers from conventional medicine. Actually, in her case, she was also struggling to get a proper diagnosis. So arthritis, or maybe it was something else, but they were not really in sync with each other. So she was getting worse and worse. She had reached a point, actually, she could not even get up from her bed. So even fibromyalgia was another thing that was sort of told to her that she was dealing with. But none of this, knowing, getting the test done, which was not giving her the answers in her case, or knowing the name of the disease, was helping her in any which way to actually get better. But it's only when I shared with her all of which goes into a chronic disease progression, and I'm going to share with you a few factors on that today. And in particular autoimmune diseases, that's when things changed for her. She also took the help of Ayurveda. She also took acupuncture. So all these things can go really hand in hand, but all of these approaches basically mean that you are trying to address the underlying imbalances, the root causes, the interactions between your genes that you have been born with, and your environment, lifestyle, and diet, right? So all of these things interact with each other, and they have a huge and critical role to play in your disease progression. So that means it will determine whether you will get better and move towards health, or you will keep getting worse and move more and more towards degenerative disease, right? That's actually what we call the autoimmune disease spectrum. But today it's not so much about that. It's about what you can do and why simply getting test after test is not enough. And if you like what I have to say, then make sure that you take advantage of the free 30-minute discovery calls that I have opened up. There are only 10 spots. Actually, I think there are about 8 spots available for the next couple of weeks. It will give you a chance to ask many questions that you might have about your disease, and for me to assess and just give you an overview and just let you know what your next step will most likely should be for you, right, to help you move towards long-term health creation. So according to Dr. Jeffrey Bland, he is known as the father of functional medicine. And functional medicine, let me just sort of talk briefly about that. It's a systems biology approach. It is science and evidence-based medicine which deals with chronic diseases, which are actually what I call the plague of the 21st century. And any kind of chronic illnesses is not from a single origin, unlike a bacterial or a viral infection or other acute conditions, but they have complex multifactorial factors. They're complex and multifactorial in nature, which makes it incredibly complex and difficult to actually see any improvements, right? So which is where functional medicine shines, because in functional medicine we believe that in a systems biology approach, that the organs in our body are not just discrete body parts. They're actually physiological processes, and they're all talking to each other, and they are interacting with each other. And when you can actually see the underlying imbalances, there might be dysfunction which is going on. When you start addressing this, that's when you actually start reversing any kind of chronic illness. So there are four important characteristics of any chronic illness that I want to start with, which is why you may not be seeing the results today, based on the approach that you have taken, that you have been led to believe is the only way to get better. And these four factors, characteristics are: the first one is that chronic illnesses do not heal by themselves, right? So actually, they in fact grow worse over time, because if we are not really addressing the underlying imbalances and maybe even nutrient deficiencies which have led to these diseases in the first place, of course we cannot really get better on our own. And just there is no return to health. We might take medications or drugs, we might go for some treatment, and it might alleviate some of the symptoms for a while, but really because the root causes have not been dealt with, we do not really get back to health. In fact, what happens for most people is that we end up having more and more drugs. I mean, one drug can lead to a couple of side effects, and to deal with that side effect we end up having one more drug, and that leads to another side effect, and we end up having another drug. So it's like this slippery slope, and we really do not get better or return to health. And this is simply because, as I mentioned, that there is no one cause or factor, which is actually the second point. So the first point that I wanted to make is that they do not heal by themselves. The second is that they grow worse over time, and I explain that right now. Third is that they don't have a single cause, which is what makes it so tricky, right? There is no single cause, unlike in the case of any infection or any other acute condition which might need a surgery. But here you don't have a single cause, which is why looking for that is also not really helpful. There are several factors involved in this, and in the case of autoimmune conditions in particular, we know that these are diseases of the entire immune system, right? They are not separate diseases. So again, looking for that one particular cause, even if you have any kind of autoimmune condition, is not really helpful. It's not enough to tell you how you can actually get better. And the fourth is that they have complex symptom profiles, which means that they have varied symptoms, right? So even three people with the same diagnosis can end up having there will be overlapping symptoms, of course, but they can end up having different kinds of symptoms, and which is why it again makes it very difficult, and the same approach for all these three people is merely not enough, right? Because some of the causes, some of the deficiencies, some of the what is really going on underneath their diagnosis is going to be different. So the approach has to be really customized to each individual, right? And that means that we need to go beyond symptom management, right? We need to go beyond what conventional medicine has to offer us. So again, I am not here to bash conventional medicine or to say that one is necessarily better than the other. Or what I'm saying here is that while conventional medicine has its place, specifically in the case of acute conditions, and even in the case of chronic diseases like autoimmune conditions, etc., it is many times it is necessary. Medications and treatments are necessary because you don't want any further tissue damage to keep occurring while you're trying to figure out what's going on and addressing your diet, your lifestyle, right? It takes time to undo the damage. It takes time to reverse and halt and then reverse the disease progression. So you don't want the damage to keep occurring, and that's when medications can come really handy, but they are not the solution, right? So what I'm here to share with you is what is effective and what actually can help you get better, right? So going beyond symptom is what you need to actually focus on, and it's the pattern of dysfunction underlying the diseases is what you need to look out for. It's You will need somebody to help you through this. So there are functional medicine practitioners and coaches like myself. This is precisely what we do. We help our clients, we become like detectives, and we dig deep into what's really going on below, underneath their diagnosis. What are the patterns of dysfunction? What are the organ systems? As I said, the systems biology approach is what we look at. So in the case, for example, of autoimmune conditions, we have three main things, which is the genetics, which is involved having the genes. Secondly will be the enhanced intestinal permeability, where your gut lining has become, the tight junction of the gut lining has become more permeable, allowing undigested food particles and microbes and toxins to pass through in your bloodstream, which should not be there, and which is triggering an immune response all the time. In fact, anytime you put a food in your mouth, right? And then of course there's an environmental trigger, and underneath all of these three factors is a weak or imbalanced immune system, right? So this is what is at play, specifically in the case of autoimmune conditions. And there is this interaction between your lifestyle, diet, and your environment, right? So as you can make out, so all of these have a role to play in that. And as I mentioned, functional medicine looks for these underlying causes and does not only focus on the most dominant symptoms, which is typically in the case of drugs and medication. So and let me give you some examples of what are these systems, the physiological processes that are involved, the different systems that I've been talking about. So these are systems which involves multiple organs. So for example, there are different names that we have given, but examples are immunity and inflammation. Then you have assimilation, and diet, nutrients. Then you have gut digestion and absorption. You have circulation and oxygen, right? These are different systems which have which interact with each other. Then you have hormones and energy. Then you have detoxification and toxins. So they are different systems. They comprise of different organs, multiple organs actually, and they are all interacting with each other, right? So we in functional medicine, we figure out which of these systems, what imbalances are there, what are the kind of dysfunctions that are there, and what needs to be addressed, right? So it's again a systems approach, and we find the imbalances and we restore the balance. That's exactly what we do with the help of diet, with the help of lifestyle, with the help of your environment. So all of it is important, and that's where you typically need a guide. And the way that I work with women is that I teach them how to use their own body, or teach them to get better using their own body as their guide and companion on this. It's a journey. This healing is a journey, and no matter how much guidance anybody else can provide, including myself, their body is their best barometer, their best companion, and their best guide, because your body is not going to lie to you. And even though it might feel, if you have an autoimmune condition, that your body is out of control, your life and your health, everything is out of control, that's actually not the case. There is a reason why your body is behaving this way, why your immune system is behaving this way. And when you understand those reasons, when you actually delve deeper, when you understand how to pay attention to the messages that your body is sending you every single day, mostly in the form of symptoms, that's when you start seeing changes, because you know you're on the right track. And if you're not on the right track, you can tweak and make changes, which is going to be much more accurate than any external data that can probably provide you. So again, this is in summary, using your body as your guide, not relying only on external data, and not just simply getting tests after tests done, or just focusing on diagnosis, and not realizing the importance of also addressing the underlying imbalances, figuring out the what are the patterns of dysfunction, and with the interaction between your lifestyle, diet, and environment. All of these have a role to play in your chronic illness. Specifically in the case of autoimmune conditions, your gut health is critical, and when you realize all of this, you can get the help that you need. You can work with a functional medicine practitioner, health coach, and they can help you to actually figure out what's going on, and show you a step-by-step approach to do this, right? So once again, if you would like to know more about this, if you would like to know more about what your next step should be, and what's going on, in very briefly, like a 30,000 feet overview, then you can sign up for schedule a free 30 minutes discovery call. This is only there are only 10 slots available right now. Actually, there are only 8 slots available for the next couple of weeks. Make sure that you head to the link in the bio and schedule the call. I'll be sharing the link in the post below in this group.